everyone. My name is Sean Zachary, and I am the founder of the National Auxiliary and Dance Directors Association, and also the director of the Prairie View Black Foxes. And so I wanted to welcome you. This is our last workshop for the season in our virtual workshop series because we need to kind of put our heads down and get some work done. I know most of you have gone back to school and you're either in rehearsals or you're teaching or you're in school or, whatever that is. And so everybody's really, really busy. And from the association standpoint, we still have a lot of groundwork, things that we've been working on, things that we need to do. So, so this will be our last in this series, but we'll be sending out information on what we have coming up, and we're working on some cool stuff. One thing in particular we are working on is our leadership academy for our student leaders. So I really want you to talk to your performers and your captains and co-captains and student directors and all that kind of stuff. And please talk to them because we are putting together training specifically for them. We don't know how long we're going to be in this virtual format. We don't know if or when we will be able to all meet in person like we had planned to do back in April, but we're going to continue moving along and putting our programs together. And another program that we're working on is which one? Oh, coaches certification, both for dance and auxiliary. So we're putting that together. So we got a lot going on. And so I really want you guys to spread the word. I still have a lot of people that, they see us on Instagram and everything, but they still really haven't dipped their foot in yet. Please tell them to come on and jump in and be a part of the conversation. So we thought it was really, really important that we have this conversation regarding color guard and flag lines in the HBCU realm, because to be quite honest, I'm not aware, maybe y'all know, but we really haven't had an opportunity to sit and just kind of powwow like this. And am I right? So I think it's good for us to get together and share information and just kind of talk about where we are now and what are some of our best practices and where we want to go. And because the prominence of HBCU color guards is just becoming, more and more and more and more at our schools. Whereas before, you could see maybe 1 or 2 or 3 schools that actually had color guards. Now, they're everywhere. So we want to get ahead of the curve. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel, and I want to give them a little bit of time, just to say who they are and what they do and and where they, what they've done and all that, just so we can know who we're talking with. So first is from South Carolina State University is Mr. Eddie Morris. Mr. Morris, go ahead and give a little introduction for yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am Eddie Mitchell Morris. I am a native of Georgia, and I started color guard back in middle school, but I wasn't on there, but I was already teaching and helping the young ladies that was interested in doing it. And so I also went to high school, and I helped out there, but by me being a trombone player, brass, it was hard to get on the auxiliary squad. But while I was in there, I marched DCI with Madison Scouts in South Wind. And I also done schools around the country and the continent. I went up to New York danced up there, did Broadway and all of that good stuff, and came to Morris Brown, where I was the director at Morris Brown over the Purple Passion. Then from Morris Brown to here at South Carolina State, where I'm the director over the Electric Silk.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Mrs. Crystal Green.
Hi, I'm Crystal Green, and most people call me Cookie. I am originally from Southern California, where I grew up watching like the WGI groups Fantasia and DCI groups like the Blue Devils. And when I was a senior in high school, like to graduate, we had to do what's called a senior project in California. And my senior project was starting a color guard. So I started the feeder program to feed from middle school into the high school with my co-captain of the color guard. And from there I marched RCC Fall and Corona Winter Guard and the Blue Devils. And I taught a little bit in DCI for a couple of years at the Blue Stars. And through moving here to Houston, I was linked up with Prairie View, and now I'm the director of the Twirling Thunder here in Houston.
Okay, great, thank you. And Keaton, please tell me your last name one more time.
Smith.
Smith, okay, Keaton Smith, who is the color guard director at Morehouse College. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, so actually I started off as a bandswoman. Didn't really have an interest in color guard, but around high school, of course, there was no need for woodwinds in marching. So I ended up just trying out color guard and enjoying it. It was fun. It was different. And so I basically never stopped. So I almost kind of traded places. So I still kind of played for a little while, but color guard was my preference. So I came to Spelman, joined the color guard at Morehouse actually my sophomore year, because my freshman year, it was actually in the AUC was hard to, the color guards weren't as visible. So actually I had no idea that Morehouse had one. I think we were trying to join one in Clark. They just Clark Atlanta, they got rid of theirs. So either way, I ended up doing my years of collegiate color guard at Morehouse. I also did a few years at Valdosta State in post-bac. I coached the high school there for a little while, then came back to Atlanta and just, I guess almost by default, ended up coaching at Morehouse. So.
All right.
Well, also, I'm a member of Tau Beta Sigma National Honorary Band Sorority. So.
Yes. Okay, so. Awesome. Okay. We were also supposed to have Mr. Julian Williams join us. I don't know if he's going to make it. I haven't seen him logged on yet, but he may come in.
See his name down there.
Where is he? Oh, that's Jillian. That's the color guard director from Winston-Salem. Am I right? Jillian, is that you?
Yes, that's correct. I'm Jillian, and he's Julian.
And he's Julian.
It's similar.
Julian Williams and Jillian Williams. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just not that I'm going to have a whole lot to say, but I just want to throw my 2 cents in there. In high school, I started out in the horn line, and my band director pushed me kicking and screaming to color guard, kicking and screaming. I did not want to go. I wanted to be in the horn line because I felt that only horn line members got to be drum major. And I had my eye on drum major. And she was like, no, you're going to be in the color guard. And so I said, okay, I'll do it for a year. And I did it for a year. And then the next year I was so good at it. She's like, okay, you're captain this year. And I was like, no, I don't want to be captain because I want to be drum major. Get it? Right? And then guess what? I still ended up being drum major.
That's good.
So yeah, so I know a little bit. I know a good deal about color guard way back then, not about what's going on now. So I'm gonna let my experts talk about what's going on now. So let's get started. And if you guys have any questions while we're talking and everything, please use the chat and go ahead and just put your question, and I will be checking the chat periodically, and when we get a chance, we'll throw questions out there as best we can. Okay, we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. So the first thing what I'd like to do is maybe from our panel, I'd like to hear from Mr. Morris here on what it was like, and I'll say the early days of color guard, but with your days at Morris Brown with color guard, because everybody knows Morris Brown, of course, from the movie. So a lot of people are very familiar. What was it like in the late 90s, early 2000s, as you were bringing up your color guard at Morris Brown?
Well, I marched corps in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I went to Fort Valley State first. And when I went to Fort Valley, Robert Ball Williams was the band director, and he had the first male color guard at Fort Valley. So I was doing color guard at Fort Valley State.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then that was, I know some of the guys, they wasn't used to it. And by me being a color guard person, we was the talk of the town that year, when we came out, because everybody came to see us. And, because FAMU always had all male, so Fort Valley was the first color guard squad that they had. And I also marched at Valdosta State too. When they had started the band the first year, I was a part of the first season, the Valdosta State, and I was the only male on the color guard, which was a great idea. And, but working with Morris Brown, some of the young ladies that was there, they was all well experienced. So it was a good thing, some, they was kind of not as good as the other ones, but they worked hard at it. And by me being a good teacher, I worked with them and brought them up to par with everybody else. But it was really good, everybody understood the vocabulary and, some of the things that they didn't know what to do, I taught them. But it was a good year at Morris Brown.
Mm-hmm. So would you venture to say that at that time there wasn't a lot of skill in terms of technique and everything with color guard, and that you had to kind of bring them up to speed and teach them?
Well, some of them was already had technique, but the majority of them did not. So I had to bring them up to par. And, they was doing some things, but didn't know the names. So, I taught them the vocabulary and took my time to teach them the technique, the proper hand positions and how to hold it and everything, the correct way to do it. Mm-hmm. And how to carry the flag instead of just being slouchy and everything.
Right. Keaton, what about at Morehouse? Since you went from member to coach?
I did, and ironically, I was actually a member late 90s, early 2000s. And so my experience personally with Morehouse is that we actually typically had women who were experienced, and I don't know, maybe because of the girls who revamped it. So we had, color guard in the past. I don't know if it was like a combination of like majorette, color guard, and no, dance was separate. So we had it in the past, disappeared. A few years before I joined, the young ladies who revamped it happened to have strong skills, and they came from a core style type of band, and so they brought that talent and those traditions to the color guard. So it seemed like they sought out similar talent. So we weren't really, because Morehouse is a small school, we weren't really focused on large numbers. So I guess it was maybe a little bit easier to bring in talent. So while I was actually on the guard, for the most part, everyone had experience. And they typically had experience from, they typically came from like a more core style, more traditional color guard type of band or experience. So we always, our struggle as a member, our struggle was trying to find our place in an HBCU band, because we will often maybe kind of feel out of place because our style didn't necessarily fit the style of color guard at the time. I also, one of the things that I noticed too is from the schools that were in our conference, many of them didn't have color guard, or if they did their color guard, their presence was very minimal.
Mhm.
And so during my time there, and also during my early times as a coach, it was more so about finding our place. But if we're talking about like the difference and watching the growth, one of the things that I will say that I've seen, and hearing from some of the panelists about their background and experience, I see more, the skill level has improved tremendously. The way that the band directors incorporate color guard into the band. Clearly, there's that DCI influence, which clearly comes from some of the coaches. But I think I've had an opportunity to kind of watch it grow and evolve to a place where I'm kind of happy with. I guess it was kind of cool to see it evolve. But my personal experience was we really spent years trying to find our place.
Mhm. Right. And I also want to mention, I know we have some color guard of super rock stars here with with Jillian and with Gary, and so please feel free to jump in and throw your 2 cents in if you want to, because I know you all have quite have some background in how things were when you got started. I'm really curious as to how or how band directors, how HBCU band directors kind of came around to saying, why, or I think I want to have a color guard. I think we should have a color guard. Did the band director come to you, or did you go to the band director? Because as y'all know, I graduated from a SWAC school, and color guards are minimal.
Don't exist as much.
Yeah, it's hard to find us in the SWAC school. So do any of y'all know, or how was it? How did your color guard get started? Did the band director just go, okay, we're gonna do this?
Well, I don't know. When I was at Morris Brown, they already had started, so I don't know whoever was before me, they started it. I know LaCarrie, before I started with them, LaCarrie was there, so I don't know who started with LaCarrie. But I know when I was at Fort Valley and we played Morris Brown, they didn't have a color guard.
Okay.
Back then, when I was at Fort Valley, they didn't have one. They just had the dancers and like the majorettes.
Right.
And when I was at Fort Valley, we had color guard, majorettes, dancers, and this drill team. But Morris Brown didn't have that.
I will say to piggyback on him, sorry, to piggyback, during that time, I want to say that Morris Brown College, Clark Atlanta University, and Morehouse College, their color guards heavily influenced each other. So I want to say it was around that time that we all revamped. We used a lot of the women from different schools. So like in Morehouse, we had students from Clark Atlanta who were members of color guard. So it was us asking the band directors. We actually personally were also, as well as Clark Atlanta, were displaced by band directors who were not used to color guard and did not know how to use this. So we were actually displaced for a few years and had to ask to come back when a new director took over.
Excuse me. Hi, my name is Val Dash. I'm Mr. Morris's assistant at South Carolina State University. And the color guard at South Carolina State University started in 1979 under the direction of Mr. Ronald J. Sargent. And it's been going strong since 1979.
Okay.
I know at A&T, probably the late 60s, from about 1968, you know, we always had baton twirlers, and around the late 60s, early 70s, we started having what they had swing flags, and we had tall flags, what they call them the short flags and tall flags. And our color guard in the 70s and 80s evolved to, you know, we were just the color guard. We didn't have dancers. We had flags and we had majorettes. So in the 80s, they started expanding more. And by the 90s, 91, 92, you got into like present day Golden Delight, which they were named, and Jillian and Shakira Bay, who's up here, who are both auxiliary coaches, can talk a little more about that. But what was kind of more so unique with us was our director, Kenneth Ruff. Dr. Ruff was the director of Golden Delight. So, you know, he was instrumental in changing a lot of the look of what the flag basis of what it looked like. Because before, you know, it was very, they wore the hats, the plumes, the drum major jacket, shorts type of deal, and the boots with tassels. And so, you know, they were one of the first color guards, or the first color guard in HBCU, to start with the whole changing of flags and that whole thing and moving out. You know, everybody used to be so school flag, school color oriented back in the day. And so as the 90s came for, I know for our auxiliary, that became the whole use of props, flags. And now, I mean, as you see Golden Light now, they've really turned into a very versatile squad because they spin and they dance. And so that has been the evolution, but it also helps to have a director of bands who understands auxiliary. So, you know, he understands that piece and he understands the importance. So that's going to always be an integral piece of how our shows are designed and planned. So.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's really noticeable, and it's not, you know, me trying to, you know, throw perception one way or the other. Notice I interchanged the word shade with perception, but what it appears like is that the MEAC, the SIAC, and the CIAA tend to be a little bit more welcoming and welcoming to color guard. And in the SWAC, we have, well, Prairie View, Alabama State,
A&M,
Southern.
Oh, you talking about with flags? UAPB? Don't they have flags?
Yep.
Alcorn don't have flags.
No, Alcorn,
They got flags.
Alcorn's tried.
They had them for a long time and then they got rid of them.
Texas Southern has an auxiliary.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kentucky State, well.
Yeah, but what, does anybody have any thoughts as to that culture and why the SWAC seems to kind of be behind the eight ball on and I only have I've got Cookie, who's only been in the SWAC for a couple years, but it just seems to me that the MEAC and everyone on the East Coast has had more influence in regards to color guard. Do you think that's because of the influence of FAMU or what? I mean, or y'all never thought of it that way?
I
never thought of it that way. You never thought of it that way. I mean,
yeah.
Some people honestly moved with the times, and if they didn't really see it as a need for their program, and I think that some directors probably may have wanted to try it, and you know, it's also a perception of what you think the audience is. You know, a lot of times, especially down the SWAC, could be very harsh on what you put out and what you present. You know, you can come out and be booed one week and gone the next week. So
I want to say that maybe it's cultural, because I actually grew up in Ohio, went to high school in Georgia. Band culture in Georgia and in the South in general, much different from band culture in the Midwest. Yeah. And so even very divided as well. So I actually went to high school at which was very different for me, but I went to a high school that was core style. Core style schools had color guard, and they were extensive and they were competitive. That was a part of our culture. in the South, typically, Black bands didn't have color guard. They had
No.
drill, they had possibly what may be called like flag line. They had a drill team, and they had dancers traditionally. So I think it may be more of a regional thing, a cultural thing, and just kind of based in tradition. And then just those band directors who are more comfortable with that style tend to take positions, you know, in their comfort zone. And so when you don't have when you've never worked with a color guard, it's not a forethought. It's a second, you know, it's secondary. Someone will have to bring it. And I know from a band director specifically, I mean, his whole thing was basically, he is great at what he does, and to add that element may take away from his greatness. I mean, to be honest. And so it's like, why add something that may complicate, you know, what you're trying to do. That was from, you know, their mouths. But so I think it's more of a cultural thing and more of a traditional thing than it is in regional.
Right. Well, what in your opinion, and I'll let Cookie jump in here, but what in your opinion, now that you've been with us for a few years, do you feel like the role of color guard is in the HBCU performance genre? Now that you've had some time to kind of transition from one to the other.
I think that like it adds a whole nother visual aspect to the program, like, you know, especially in what we do at Prairie View, like the dancers do their piece and then they're out, you know, and during the drill song, there's something to watch as we're building those pictures, as we're building those moments. There's something else that draws your eye, you know, it brings a little bit something visually to what's going on in the show. Since the color guard's mainly doing something the entire time. So you can look over here at what, you know, the band is doing now, and then there's always that, like, oh, on the side, you can see how the representation of the music is coming through with the flags.
Yes.
What about Mr. Morris on your side of the world? What's your role?
I like it because, you know, it really, the band can tell the story, but we're painting the picture. And, you know, by the band doing their drill, we're in there with them. And, you know, telling the story, we're really bringing it to life with the colors and the different changing of equipment and things like that. Like the band is playing the music and we're interpreting what the band is playing. And so some of the band directors don't know how to write drill. You know, they didn't know how to write drill. I was doing my own drill, but then you got those band directors that can write drill, the intertwine the guard in with the band, and that just really enhances the band and the drill and the movement that what they're doing.
Now, do you guys
the full picture?
Right, the full picture, picture. But then going back to our other conversation in regards to the SWAC, culturally, it just was never even it wasn't a thought. But you know what was? Twirlers, feature twirlers. That was a big thing in the SWAC, especially in the 80s. Jackson State had them, Alcorn had them. You know, everybody had feature twirlers. Some of them would even come out there with fire, just all kinds of stuff. So I guess just the perception of you know, what types of visual things that band directors wanted to add to their show. And you know, in the SWAC down south, it was feature twirlers. It was. The difference, now here's the thing, I've had some people get a little snippy with me because of the interchangeable use of flag line and color guard. How do y'all feel about that either way? What's the difference between the two? And why am I getting mean looks when I do that?
I guess because flag line is like in the past and the color guard is like the future. They just changed the name. That's what I think.
Really?
Yeah, because when South Carolina State started their color guard, we were called flag girls.
Hmm.
It wasn't color guard.
Okay.
Color guard came years and years after that.
But
We were definitely,
what made it change though? I'm and
I,
why do some people like just really get hot under the collar? We're not a flag line. We're a color guard.
now high school, I came from Orangeburg Wilkinson High School. We were core
Okay.
style. We
Okay.
were called color guard then, but at college, when I came to South Carolina State, we were just called flag girls
Okay.
because their name when they first started was called Charlie's Angels, which it changed as years went on.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't know exactly how the name changed, but we were color guard starting in the 90s. But we were always called flag girls. And when the band director spoke about us, oh, flag girls, flag girls, flag line, flag girls. But, you know, like I said, in high school, we were called color guard back in the 70s.
Okay.
And I think some of them think flag line and flag girl is like disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a negative connotation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Flag girls, flag line. Like
Uh-huh.
we're more than that, you know, don't just like we push us to the side. We're
Yeah.
there in your face.
Well, to be honest, there have been some lines that like they don't spin. They just
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
everybody doesn't.
they're just a color guard that don't spin.
right.
Yeah, I don't think everybody takes offense, but I think just as color guard in general has been evolved and become more recognized. I think color guard, not I think, but color guard encompasses more than just flag because we do more than flag. There's props, there's you know, body dance, like it encompasses more than just flag. So just to kind of attach us to this is all we do is kind of putting us in a box, I guess. And so that maybe I personally don't really get offended because I've been called both, but it's just a kind of wanted to demand a little bit more respect. I think that's for the newer.
Quentin just said, I think it's based on the level of performance. And I get that part too, but I mean it causes like quite a, if y'all notice, like sometimes on Instagram, anytime I post anything about color guard, I have to say color guard flag line because I don't want to offend anyone, and I don't want to think that I'm leaving anyone out because I'm not. And then typically, just to kind of quell all of that, I use the word auxiliary. Because, you know, truth be told, you know, some, and we'll talk about this a little later, but some HBCU squads are starting to really venture out and become, you know, more than just, you know, twirlers of flags and anything with color. You know, we've got rifle, we've got sabers, we got, I know Texas Southern use, and some of the other SWAC schools use the little ring things, and so yeah, anything that you know is artistic and visual they use. And so a lot of times I'll just go with the word auxiliary because, you know, again, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to get into that, but I think that any kind of visual, I don't know what the word is, but enhancement to a field show is good. It's worth it. It's worth all the time and the effort. It makes a complete show regardless of what apparatus you guys are using. So yeah, let me go on to our next question. Is managing the relationship between color guard members and the dance line. Another touchy subject. I want to talk about your experiences with that. One in regards to you know, being what your band directors think, there's that. And then there's also just, you know, what you guys think and how do you manage that relationship? Because let's be honest, sometimes there's tension, right?
There is.
Uh, what about you, Keaton? Has there ever been, have you had to, you know, deal with that with your team?
I have, and to be honest, from the inside out, from a member and a coach, to be completely honest, a lot of the tension comes from outside.
Explain what you mean by that.
So as a member, to be very honest, like color guard is difficult. Color guard, especially when you are doing things, when you are a rifle and you're a saber and you have short flags, tall flags, swing flags, when you are trying to work with band directors who aren't experienced with, you're creating drill. That's what your mind is focused on as a team member. So a lot of the tension comes from maybe one member of one organization had an issue, or it's all one organization, but one member of color guard had an issue with a member on the dance line. And that from the outside looking in, because that's what we like to do, we're college students, we like drama. From the outside looking in, it turns into this beef between women, because what do? That's what we do. We have beef. And it's just something that kind of starts in something minor. Well, for our lines, I feel like there's something that started with something minor and then turned into something
blow up.
Right. Yeah, something over exaggerated by band members, typically, honestly, not necessarily by the band director. I think the conflict maybe with the band director is just trying to find a place for everyone, especially the ones who are less experienced. But so typically internally, as a coach, I've never had an issue with like the two squad, aside from friendly competition or friendly, in the same way that the trumpet section and the percussion section or whoever has their little, nothing outside of that. So I've never really had true tension between the organizations at our institution. But if you ask the band members, it is a long-standing beef that we have. Like they'll tell a different story. So personally, I think where some of the biggest tension maybe comes in is probably more so with the maybe coaches or captains, and it's finding our places. That's pretty much finding our places, finding our value. Working together on the field.
Right.
That's the biggest. Yeah.
Right. Cookie, what about you? What have you, and I guess, I'm asking you, I know you're looking at me like that because you're like, you already know, you're there with me.
No, I definitely agree with like a lot of times some of the stuff that girls come to me with. It's like I'm a big proponent of like, don't tell me like they. Who is they? They said this, they said, well, who is that? And when you get down to it, it's like most of the time it's like, well, I mean, there's no black fox that came and said this to you. You heard from a friend who heard from a friend who heard from a friend. Like a lot of it is that. And I think for us, it's a lack of communication. Like I feel like if they spent a little bit more time together, then there wouldn't be as much issues. I feel like they don't spend any time. They're like these two separate islands. And then we get on a bus together. And of course, like, the time that we're on that bus is stressful. We're getting ready for a competition, or we're on a drive from here to friggin' Atlanta. Like, it's a stressful situation, so it causes tension that way, But what she was saying, what Keaton was saying about it being like a lot of like just hearsay from other people making something out of nothing, I feel like a lot of the drama that we have, period, can be covered underneath that situation, like blowing up something. And I try my hardest. I know sometimes it's, it falls upon deaf ears to just tell the girls like, okay, we'll go have a conversation, go communicate with that person. But I do feel like this generation coming up is, you know, born of the like pop off now, ask questions later a little bit. Like
Well,
like they go straight to 10 a lot of times, and I'm like, really, do you hear yourselves? Like because you use the outlet that you wanted to use, like, are we really about to pop off about an outlet? Like, you know?
yeah, but how much of social media and social media attention that the dance teams get do you think plays a part in some of this?
A lot.
Yeah, I definitely think that has a part, you know, just within society now, like people sitting home, especially now, looking at other people on social media, and you know, it drives people crazy. Like, oh, well, they get this attention, they get this, and they get that, and I'm like, well, I mean, you could have the same thing too if you want that, if that's what you want, then let's go for it. But there's not always that. Case in point. So this summer we made an effort to do more projects so that they have a social media presence. And I say, okay, everybody take a picture like this and send it to me. And I give a detailed outline on how the picture needs to be taken. And literally I get like not one of 15 bullets was taken into consideration on the picture I asked them to take. So we didn't that week, we didn't post anything, you know?
Right.
So,
I will tell you this, and just from my, you know, me and you, we ride the bus together. So we ride the same bus. But social media is a necessary evil. It has its upside and it has its downside. And it has caused, we had a social media summit early August, late July, early August. And this was one of the things that we talked about, was the impact of social media on our members. And it has caused so much drama on so many teams that I caution color guard coaches to please learn from our mistakes. Please, please, please learn from our mistakes. If you are going to venture out into that whole social media thing, go with caution, because I don't think that a lot of color guard members realize just how hurtful it can be and how destructive it can be and what it does to the self-esteem of certain people. And you're right, because we talked about in the social media summit, we talked about how back in the earlier days when videographers used to sneak in and videotape the band, we used to actually love to get their videos because we were like, oh, I want to look at the video so I can critique my performance and I can get better and I can improve. And then over the years, it got worse and worse and worse to the point where you couldn't make any mistakes at all. If there was any mistake, if your wig flipped up, or your weave was fuzzy in the front and straight in the back, or if all of these things, now there's this microscope, right, that's on you. And I don't think people realize what it does to your self-esteem and the drama that it causes. So I really, really hope that color guard coaches and color guard performers, because I know we have a few on the call tonight, please wade carefully. Right. Do it the right way. Because it could tear your team apart.
Yes.
And my experience is a little different. So I marched at North Carolina A&T State University as Golden Delight. So coming over and transitioning as the color guard coach for Winston-Salem State was very different. So because there are two separate squads and we're not one team. So as far as the competitiveness, for me, I didn't understand it. And like others have said, it's more or less the outside place in a conversation or nitpicking, doing the most, basically, unnecessarily As a color guard advisor, the coach, there are so many more other things that we have going on that I can tell you. Worrying about what the dance team has going on has always kind of been the least of my concerns from an advisor perspective, as well as, you know, from a coach perspective. You know, that's not so many other things that we need to worry about. So we do tend to kind of divide ourselves from a practice standpoint in situations like that, just to kind of keep away from that. And I know Ms. Magruder, I believe she's still on the call list here. She's our dance advisor, so she may be able to speak and chime in too. And I think the divide, so to speak, is what causes some of the friction or the tension, or for people from the outside looking in to think that there is something going on when there's not really that at all. Also, we ride the bus together, and if anybody has ever rode a bus with auxiliary, if the routine is not together, uniform is not together, hair is not together, somebody's missing something, there's always tension in the air. And it's not one team versus the other. It's more or less, when we get off this bus, we just want everything to be as we have throughout the weeks to make things happen.
Yeah.
And then from a social media standpoint, that's probably one of the biggest things from my team. I'm trying to get them to understand that we can do just as much as anybody else on social media, but we're not just going to throw anything out there just to put it out. Level of and a standard of things that have to be done on a regular and consistent and daily basis before we decide to go out here and put things on social media. And that's something that I try and make sure that my team, and they're on the call too, so y'all speak up also, to let them know that out there. It doesn't matter what somebody else is doing. It's what we've worked hard to do. And if it don't look good, it don't look good.
That's right. And if it don't look good, it ain't going out there.
That's right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. We've had that conversation, is that, you know, well, if you want to be out there on social media, then you have to be worthy of being out there on social media. And that means when you see the camera coming around, you need to get it together.
Yeah.
And I mean, collectively, there have been many of times where our flag line as well as our dance team, we've came together. Even from a uniform standpoint, not that we've communicated and said, hey, we're wearing this color uniform or you're wearing that color uniform, but for whatever reason, we collectively come together and things work out, and we may all have on a red uniform or we may all have on a black uniform, and it just looks together as a team, and that kind of hushes the outside outsiders without us, you know, really doing anything.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they realize they cannot listen to the outside. You know, you have to keep it inside. Don't worry about what the outside is saying, you know, because the outside can destroy it. I know, like, if we hear something that's come to us, Ms. Val and I, we nip it in the bud right then and there. When we hear something, we will call a meeting and have a powwow, and whoever says something, we go into that source face to face.
Good. Well, let me just chime in. I'm the dance advisor for Winston-Salem State University. And to kind of piggyback off of what Jillian just said, that rivalry, so to speak, has been a long-standing before she got there, before I even got there, before my husband, who is the band director, got there. So for whatever reason, I really don't know why there is a difference. And I'm in a different situation because I want the best for the whole band because my husband is the director. So, you know, I always try to encourage my girls, you know, we're one band. We all have a role to play in the band. The flags do what they do. We do what we do. So we should not we shouldn't be rivals at all. Right. And that is really my position. And I try to encourage the girls to be friendly, you know, because to be honest, I think we have a really good flag line. I really do. And we all, you know, all of us flub at times, but, you know, I really do think we have a good flag line, and there should be no competition. Everybody should love what they do.
Right. Everybody should love what they do. One of the things too that I'm hoping that we can do as a part of the association is to get a little bit more exposure for our color guards. We know that there's DCI, and we know that there's Winter Guard, and there should be an outlet for our HBCU teams as well to be able to go out, compete if they want to, or do exhibitions if they want to, expand. One of the things that we've done at Prairie View is we have, and some of you may see it on the Fox's YouTube page, but we have a spring show. This year is going to be a fall show because, football season, but we have a spring show, and it's like a big recital, and it gives everybody a chance to see not just the Foxes, but the color guard. And this year, the percussion section is getting involved. And last year, the drum majors got involved. And it's a show that exhibits other talents, other genres. I think people last year, for the first time, really got to see how talented the young ladies in our color guard really are. And that was from the spring show. And so I really do feel like we can create these outlets that give our HBCU members, our color guard members, a chance to really show what they can do, and to really show, hey, I love what I do. I love, we are good at what we do. And so I'm hoping that the association can kind of take a lead in that.
I know in the past, Ms. Zachary, we have did exhibition for Winter Guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I would love to see more HBCU teams go to Winter Guard, but it's cool to go to Winter Guard, but at the same time, we can have our own stuff.
That's true.
We can. It can be done. All we got to do is get together and do it. Right?
That's right.
Okay, so let's talk about image, and the reason I wanted this question is because what I've noticed is, and I know that history and tradition of the bands kind of determine a lot, but for some of you on the panel, have your traditions changed over time as far as how you present yourself as a team? How do you decide how you look, what you wear, what your traditions are? How are you deciding that? And I'll bring this up as an example. And again, not saying it's a good, bad, or indifferent thing, because Vidette was supposed to be on the call, but she was busy. She had another event tonight. But Silkettes, have y'all looked? Silkettes, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M. Their color guard image and how they present themselves has not changed since day one. Now, I remember when I was a coach at Howard, I remember when North Carolina A&T came to DC and played Howard. And again, Golden Delight had on the boots with the tassels, and they were skipping across the field, and they had the flags, and then they do the flags, and you could tell it was right at the point when they were kind of changing. They were moving from from this to more in the direction of what we see now. And how do you decide or if you're going to stick to that culture, or if you're going to kind of take some chances and change your image and change your branding? Anybody jump in?
Well, I think that you have to have members that are willing to take that leap. You know what I mean? Like, from my very limited, I'm new to this genre, but like from what I'm seeing, like the kids that come to HBCUs, they have an expectation. You know what I mean? Like, they've been wanting this for a very, very long time. So you have to have a group of kids that are willing to take that leap with you. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm jumping in as a baby auxiliary director. I started out core style in high school, and then I went to traditional style when I moved high schools, and then I went to college at SCSU under Mr. Eddie Morris. And now I'm director at Allen University, which we're a baby band. This is the first time we've had a band since the 1960s. So this is only our third year. So what we are trying to instill in these kids is a sense of pride, a sense of making your own traditions, et cetera, so that the band program that builds has that pride, has those traditions. So that is like our biggest struggle right now, because they will do whatever we give them as direction, but also it's their band, it's their color guard. So we want them to have their own traditions, their own style, but we're having trouble getting them there.
Interesting. Anybody else having that issue?
So we're in a space where, like I said, we've had gaps in our traditions. So we were around in the 70s, 80s, and then dismantled. Then we were back around in the early 90s, 2000s, dismantled. So we are, as a color guard, we're actually kind of starting fresh. But a big part of it is number one, changing with the times. Culturally, this is a different generation. And to be honest, it seems like, well, for one, you have to follow the vision of your band director. But I think as more, and I appreciate these HBCU color guards, because I've seen a huge shift and a huge change style in the uniforms, moving more toward a less traditional style, moving more into I don't want to say feminine. I don't feel like that's the right word, but a different, just a different type of expression. But so we went from this is what the band director feels color guard uniform should look like, from his research that typically comes from, like you said, like DCI type bands, and not necessarily understanding that their uniforms match the theme of the show. And so some of these eccentric uniforms match with a very specific theme, so they have a place, typically outside of like North Carolina A&T and some of these other schools that are stepping outside of the box. But typically HBCU bands don't have those kinds of themes. Like, they don't have props, they don't utilize, they do what they do. So we have to fit in. So those flowy types of uniforms, just the things that may look good when they match a certain visual, are actually a hindrance, to be honest, when you are using different types of equipment. And so we've actually been able to move into a space where our uniforms are a little more risque, or a little more what the girls see them as more like feminine, or they have more of a say. They have a huge voice in picking what they want to wear. It exudes more confidence, but it's kind of, to be honest, it's just kind of rolling with the times. Mm-hmm. That this generation is not necessarily my generation, and I have to be open-minded. That's our, and just like I said, it's the vision of the band director as well.
Right. Anyone else?
Well, I know I didn't have a problem once I came aboard as the director of the color guard. They gave me, I could do whatever I want to, the uniforms. They didn't tell me no guidelines, and by they knowing my background, I was able to do however I want to. And I also looked at my squad. The squad go look good, what everybody go look good in, so everybody can look as one and nobody feel out of place, and everybody feel comfortable with what they have on.
Mm-hmm. How important do y'all think, well, this is two questions. One is, how important do you think technique is? And when I say technique, I mean more than just your basic spin. How important is technique to your team? And the DCI influence? Yes, no? Is it too much? Not enough? What are your thoughts on that? The DCI influence and technique.
I'm a large proponent of technique, and I mean the Twirl and Thunder could tell you that they get sick of me working on drop spins and cones and things like that every day. But I mean, for me, that's first and foremost, that's what I know. And as someone who like has cleaned for a lot of different people and a lot of different styles within the core style genre, like the easiest way to get your color guard clean is if they can get through those different technique exercises. So I mean, as far as core style and show style, I don't care either way. I just want the flags to go around together.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, like I don't want to be watching videos of people being off. It irritates my very soul. So I think that technique is very, very important. And I mean, I like to see a little bit of core style in the sense of like people that are using props and things like that. But it's also cool to see like just people doing what they came there to do and why they signed up for it, like at the same time. But at the end of the day, for me, is they need to be doing it at the same time and they need to be doing it the same way.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I know I'm a very technical person. Sarah know this because she was under me. You know, if you're teaching the technique part of the daily basic, that technique will fall in place. And therefore, once everybody's doing the routine and on the field, everybody's hands is in the right places, go look as one. Because all it takes is one person's hand to be out of place and not in the proper place. Then that one person, you can be looking at straight ahead and somebody be off on your head, go that way because their hand is out of place of the technique. So, you know, the technique is very important in learning the basics and the fundamentals. Once you drill that, everything gonna fall in place.
Keaton?
So yeah, technique is extremely, extremely important to me. And see, me personally, because I have such a passion for color guard and like over the years, like I've developed my skill to a certain level. You know, you go out and you learn new tricks, you want somebody to do them. So we're big on standing out and not being what the stereotype of like color guard is. But the difficulty that we have, to be honest, recently is that we're having a hard time finding the talent. And so we've shifted from these extremely talented, amazing members who, you know, you can teach them anything they can do. We can do tricks, we can use any kind of like equipment, to girls who have no experience. And so it's kind of like, got to go back to you start with the basics and fundamentals, but we typically have, you know, girls who already come in or members who already come in and they have those things. And so it's just a matter of teaching uniformity as opposed to having, you know, members that come in and we're teaching them from scratch. So like Crystal was saying, there is a mind shift where you have to really focus on that togetherness and focus on working with the crew, the group of members that you have. So I think at this point, this has kind of been our struggle, is how do you balance, how do you, without having a guard of two members, how do you balance the members who are more talented with the members who are fresh we're a small band, in a band that's small to have a 30-member color guard, you know, to where you could have the more skilled members, you know, working on one type of technique or one style, and the members who were newer are still learning, you know, doing something different. That's my vision. Like, that's what I want to see in a perfect world. But we're actually in a space where recruiting is really hard for us right now. Recruiting the talent.
It is hard.
This
You
is
know,
one thing I can say with our group at South Carolina State University. Mr. Eddie Morris, you know, not bragging, but he is one of the best, okay? He has taken so many members with no experience to coming up through the years and being a section leader for our squad. So it just takes the work extra. Yeah, it is extra work to work with that person with no experience. But, you know, you just have to, I don't know, I won't say be dedicated, but because, you know, everybody's dedicated, but you have to work a little harder with that person.
Yeah, but
But
see, working with one or two is different from working with a whole squad coming with no experience. And that's what we are. We've never been there before. We have a whole squad with no experience. And just, I mean, maybe somebody with a more ambitious mindset. It's just a mind, it's a readjustment. It's hard to adjust.
Just stay on them.
mm-hmm.
I
Julia,
think
you had something? Oh, go ahead, Gary. Go
I
ahead.
think the biggest piece too, and you know, I worked some with Golden Delight during the summertime just on technique things, but it's building technique number one, but it's also building the emotional performer. And I think that's a lot that lacks in a lot of flag work is the emotional piece. And so not only working on the whole technique piece, because that's a big piece. And you know, you have so much to cram into a squad like that. And I mean, they have such a tight infrastructure down to how, you know, Miss Shelton runs it down all the way down. So even like when she's away from them and she has stuff set up and you have to deal with things. So, you know, coming in the morning, they have to really work on technique. And it's like, all right, let's get together and let's know and let's understand moving the flag around the body and understanding the body and how that stuff works. So it's just really just breaking down, like, you know, Mr. Morris and like Cookie both said, just knowing the body, one, but also like connecting that whole technique piece and the emotional piece, because it's easy to go out and spin to some music. And if you're not really feeling it and putting your emotion into it, your flag work does not come across the way it needs to. And so I think that the big piece now is what's lacking to me, and that's going back, is the whole emotional performance piece. You see a lot. I have seen some squads and I can stand and I'm looking at them and they're counting, doing the routine and stuff like that. And they're not focused on performing. They're focusing on not messing up and not performing. And so it's a lot, you have to connect with it. And that's a big piece that's missing today to me.
Yeah. And like Angenique says, it definitely takes persistence. As a new person guard, you have to be committed to getting the speed. And one of the things that I think I want to mention too, because I did bring it up to Twirl and Thunder last season, was it not just the emotional piece, Gary, like you said, but movement without the flag. We don't know how to do other than just walk, run, and skip. And if you look at a DCI performance, you know, color guards, they're dancers. You know, and so one of the things that we're planning on doing is getting Twirl and Thunder in a class with the Foxes and doing nothing but across the floor, just movement, very basic walking and movement across the floor, because you know some of those things that inhibits their ability to kind of let go and perform too, because you know they're watching, they're counting the feet, and you know, and then okay, you got to go up here and then you got to turn left and then you got to do this and that, you know. So that's another piece. If you haven't considered that, you may, I don't know if any of you have your color guard and dance team do things together other than Golden Delight, in terms of just basic movement, I think would be a big help. I'm gonna say right now, if anybody has questions, go ahead. We want to wrap this up, so if you have questions, go ahead and put in the chat. And I just want to give say thank you to our panelists, and I'm going to give you guys the final word, just, you know, to kind of summarize just your thoughts on maybe the future of color guard in the HBCU genre. So I'll start with Mr. Morris.
I can hear you, Ms. Zachary.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, just your thoughts on the future of color guard in HBCUs.
I feel that, you know, if we keep positive coaches that's willing to work and, you know, go forward, it's going to be all right. You're going to see it advance even more. Because I have, you know, because of Rona, I hate it because, you know, we're not able to get hands-on. I'm having to have like rehearsal doing Zoom. You know, it's hard, but we're making it work. But it's even better because color guard, you have to be hands-on. You have to be there. You can you can give them correction on Zoom, but you have to be there to show them with their hands, because you can tell them, but some of them still don't understand. But we pray that this, you know, too shall pass, so we can get together with our groups and everything. But it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the future.
Cookie?
I see, like, I don't know, I just imagine like this new kind of genre, like something that's in between core style and show style, like something new that's gonna be coming out. I don't know. Yeah, but like the two are gonna merge for us. That's kind of where I see us going, because I love the, like, the technical aspect and the movement and how that's incorporated with the core style. But I feel like show style is a lot more entertaining. Like if you were just gonna watch one band do something, like, I think I would rather see what we do. So I feel like a merger of the two is where we're headed.
Keaton?
So I guess I don't know, coming out of this pandemic, so what I would like to see is I would actually like to see more exposure for color guard outside of the traditional marching band, like with the winter guards, or even like something like an in-between type, for one, to give the members an opportunity to stay in practice and perform in between band season. Also, I think you can recruit better and get just better exposure when they're able to really see what color guard is, what we do, its potential. There's so much more you can do, to be honest, outside of, you know, working with you know, a band in all of its moving pieces. And even as a member, somebody who's very passionate about it, just building that skill and just wanting to showcase yourself in a different way. And like I said, coming out of the pandemic, I mean, we can social distance as far as, you know, our squads are concerned. I mean, literally you have to, or you'll get injured. But so I would kind of like to see, as we move back into, you know, back into what society will look like normally, is during that in-between time to just spend a little bit more time working on color guard separately.
Right. Agreed. A comment from Shakira: it would be nice to have a clinic in the future for HBCU 12 teams. And yes, that's coming. It is definitely coming, because we had actually planned on doing that at our conference in April before it got canceled. So I think that's a great idea, and that it is coming. And are there any questions or comments from the floor? All righty. I really appreciate you guys spending your Wednesday evening with us, and we'll be keeping you. Now I can kind of get back and get focused. Like someone says something about social media and all that it takes. It really does take a lot, and I'm going to be finding an intern soon so that I don't have to do it all myself. But still follow us on social media and to just keep abreast of what we're doing and the things that we're planning. Pretty soon we will be unveiling a membership structure. So you will be like full-fledged members of the association. And again, it is for coaches, former coaches, wannabe coaches, student directors, student performers, alumni, everybody. There's a place for everybody in this association. So we hope that you all will just kind of stick with us as we are building our ground floor. And we'll be presenting things to you. If you have not filled out the contact form, please do so. So that I can add you to my my email distribution list, because I do send out emails as well. And sometimes email is just a little bit more efficient than social media. So fill out the contact form. You can find it attached to the on our Facebook page. It's on there, and it takes you to a job form, and I can get, you know, like your email address and all that stuff. So if there's nothing else, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Y'all have a great rest of the week. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch soon. And thank you.
See everybody later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.